team dynamics. You were naming how this methodology may be called in different areas. We have something similar that we call the Fishbowl Methodology, where you have a person sitting in the middle and you sit circle style around everyone while you're having questions or discussion, and allow the person in the middle to talk. So it kind of reminds me of that, dovetailed with Nancy Klein, dovetailed with Lakota. So
Yeah.
This seems like a great methodology to use in organization and interviewing.
Absolutely. We use Fishbowl a lot when we are in a coaching training where people will coach in front of people, and people will then give them feedback there and there. So it's exactly that is one good example of a similar type of a methodology. But I also want to encourage people to go and Google brainstorming and just read in details. If you have not done so, I assume most of us have been in setup where brainstorming was used. But I've seen a lot of people breaking the laws of brainstorming, seriously so, because there are principles that you need to follow if brainstorming is going to work for you. For instance, the fact that you first have to diverge before you converge to conclusion. That's a discipline you need to have, and you can do that also in your show. That we can want your guests not to come to summarizing things too early, or I don't know how to put it, where you delay arriving at the end of your journey with the guest, right? But this is all very intentional. All what you do, you have to hold the model at the back of your head and always remind you that these are principles that are guiding your engagement with the listeners. But obviously the situations dictate. Great. You must have seen situations in the villages when there is weddings or there are funerals. As people arrive, observe and see how people sort of like organize themselves without actually following any script. You'll see the elders just assembling, the men assembling under the tree, and they automatically just form a lochotla. But it's like a getting together lochotla. There's no topic they're going to discuss, but they are coming to an event, but they actually go and assemble in a lochotla format. And there are quite certain practices that happen. And the women, and I think now this is now something I have to be very careful, because these are some practices that are facing away, and we are discouraging them, because in our lochotla at Comesa, every woman and men are together. There's no men only. But traditionally, as you have read the history and the documents, you will see that lochotla used to be actually a methodology used by the men in the kraal, at the king's kraal. Women will assemble in the house, but the women will provide the nourishment to the men at the lochotla, at the kraal. You know? And as people enter that lochotla, there is a protocol that gets followed. And I think this is very important, because we need to understand the historical perspective to it. When you arrive at the zimas, and the zimas are having a function, and you are, let's say you are Hatebe, you get attended by whoever is the representative of the zimas, who's not necessarily a zima name, but somebody from the zima what's called neighbors, that will point you to the designated person that will pass your greetings to the people who have gathered there. And the reason why they do that is because you may end up actually greeting wrong people who are not necessarily the hosts. Yeah. So there is, if you think of it, in a company, when you are in a board meeting and there is a guest who's invited to address you at the end of your board meeting, the guests get invited and get made to sit comfortable, but the guest doesn't participate in your deliberations until the board meeting is done, and then they say, now we are going to open the last section to listen to our guest speaker to indulge us into something. So the same thing happens also. You have to be welcomed by the people and then be invited to be part of what is going on. Otherwise, you are not welcome until they have recognized you. And what is fascinating is that your name is not necessarily your name. You don't arrive there and say, I'm Sam Zima. They will say, Sam Zima Wabano. Sam Zima of who? Basically, they say, who are your parents? So identity in a Lekgotla is very, very important. That's why check-in. We build check-in in our Lekgotla because during the check-in, that's where you are given the opportunity to actually tell people a little bit about how you feel, who you are. So we build a check-in and introduction. Now, if you think of our shows in our radio, I have listened to many of us a number of times. We're going to talk about that we rush introduction and we mix introduction with the main body of the show. And that's why I've encouraged you that don't mix the introduction of a guest and of the topic and yourself with the actual show. Take a 5-minute break. Yeah? Any comment? Those of you who have hosted shows? Mr. Hate.
Good evening to everyone.
Yes. Tendani. Yes.
Hi, good evening. I've actually just picked up a few things, and that has also happened to me. That I think it all boils down to not wanting to stand up more than your guests. You have to allow your guests to be who you are. And if you have a guest that is willing to share information, you better open up yourself to receive that information and allow them to get to the end of what they are saying instead of trying to cut them because of the information that they're sharing is quite relevant according to the show you're running at the moment. So I learned that it's not always all the time that I have to be imposing or posing questions to the guest, but instead allow them to give us what they have or what we call them info. For example, if you ask them a question about their business, we need to, or you need to allow them to tell us fully so that we can have a better understanding of who they are or where they come from.
Mm. Absolutely. Now, Tendani, here's the thing. All the three components, because your show is one unit, but it's made up of three components. And brother Romeo here, he did mention this last time, and I'm just repeating some of the things. That, introduction, the actual conversation, and the conclusions are equally important.
Yes.
You agreed?
Correct.
But
correct, yes.
I can challenge you by saying that you don't always treat them like that.
You are correct.
And the question is why?
The why question will be a bit difficult for me because I'm also still learning. And probably with such information of getting to a place and allow yourself to be introduced or get into a place and wait for your turn, to talk, especially on radio. When you are a host, you tell yourself that the show is yours. Your host coming in. And then because probably of this little knowledge of how the show should be running, then you think that, okay, you should be more talking and the guest should be just agreeing with what you're saying instead of me allowing the guest to deliver what I call them info.
So will you agree with me that your show is as you see it yourself?
Definitely, I do agree.
So many a times what you're giving us is what you have seen the show to be. So if in your seeing of your show, introduction and conclusions are not as important as a conversation, that's what you give us. Meanwhile, I, as a guest, I might be very interested in knowing who is this person who's giving such powerful stuff. But you have rushed introduction because for you, it's not how you see your show. Your show is the content.
that actually has happened many times, Sam, where we rush to the content before we actually understand who is the person giving in. Even the conclusion, sometimes you find that it was not given enough time.
Because you don't provide for
just
it.
A minute or two. Yes.
Because now you are in the middle of the meaty stuff, which for you is a show, the actual conversation. Now, I'm not going to cut this guy off just to rush to do a conclusion. No. Let him finish. Because for you, conclusion is not part of your show.
Yes.
But do you know that is also how we run meetings? Do you know that's also how we run meetings? You run the meeting up to the last second, and when people start standing up, you say, guys, okay, thank you very much for coming. We shall be in touch.
That's true. That's very true.
So you haven't really done conclusion. You haven't closed the meeting. You've just ended the meeting.
Yes, that has just been happening a lot, many a time.
So what is the lesson there?
Now that there's 3 points that have been introduced, the lesson would be that I need to know to do things step by step. I should not run to the context of the conversation and forget two other important things, the intro and then the conclusion.
Yeah. So if the actual conversation, which is the body, is good, but the introduction is bad and the conclusion is bad, the show is bad. You can't say I had a good show.
Yes, the whole show is true.
Come in, guys.
Very true.
Which is contact number one. I want us contact number one and contact two. Self-introduction and introduction of the co-hosts. Of the guest, and co-host. I have also observed that I'm on contact number one, self-introduction. I've also observed that because you are the regular host, you have already discounted the importance of introducing yourself. Because you are a regular host, you are known. But you're forgetting that you don't know that you might just be having people hearing you for the first time. So you can't get tired of introducing yourself. And you can't actually rush through introducing yourself. I'm not saying tell the whole story every show. But what is it about you that is very important related to this show that people must know about? That is also a subject of a planning for every show. It's not the same every show. Any inputs? Maynard, you have had a show. How did you do? How was it with your introduction, my brother? Yeah, Pat? Sorry.
Sorry, I keep on losing you, but I think I got a gist of what you're saying. I think if I'm to speak for myself, it was more anxiety than anything else. I think I don't know if nerves takes over at a time when you think you've prepared so much and you are ready for this, and that moment comes and you keep on hoping that it wasn't coming, but it is coming and you can't push it backwards. You remember just how bit of a mess I was in my first show. It gets better with time, but when that moment comes and the reason the intro wasn't to a large extent wasn't good, was the anxiety part of it, and you coached us through that together with Captain and Sydney, and we get to understand and we appreciate that. And but for me, in the beginning, that was what the issue was, and I hope and I think it's improving as we go, because we receive a continuous coaching around it, and we getting to understand to relax, and the nerves are gone a little bit as well, and that helps. Sorry. I keep on losing you, but I think I get to hear what you're saying.
Yeah, okay. I think I also have a challenge. My network is not as strong as it's supposed to be. Thanks, Pat. But Pat, I'm going to make assumption and tell me if I'm wrong. When you, Captain, and Sydney host your shows and you do your introductions, you are not reading from a script, right?
No, not anymore.
But why?
I was.
But why?
Yeah. You remember after my first show, you said to me, "Get rid of this of the notes."
Yes. Yeah. No. That's the point. Sorry, I'll confuse you there. Let me put it this way: you don't have a script next to you that you throw your eye at, Captain.
No, we. From my side, usually I have a note of salient point, which I think from introduction, and some it's built up according to the preparation which we had, the dry run which we had during the week, leading to what we are really anticipating about the show. Then from then I can introduce myself as well, because I'm aware that even the guests, sometimes you find they are listening, they can be able to, I can be able to direct them to a line of the experience which I'm coming from.
But you all thoroughly have a detailed plan of the conversation in writing.
Yes,
that is correct.
But you just don't have a detailed plan of how you're going to introduce your show for this particular person, this type of a client, and you don't have a well scripted how you're going to end the show. I'm just asking, because these are behaviors that we adopt that fail us. You understand? You hear me talking and say, this is commercialradio.com, the mind, the journey, the destiny. We apply our mind to the journey that takes us to our destiny. I'm reading it, even though I know it off heart. Don't ever allow to guess anything in radio, because you're going to be disappointed when you listen to yourself afterwards, because you think you know it. I've listened to you a number of times. You say the slogan, but I know it's not correct, because you are not reading it properly. I've heard you sometimes, when you do the idea, in the beginning you talk about we develop and we educate. But the slogan says we inform and entertain. And you understand? In radio, adherence to script, and on non-adherence to script, you get fired. Because you cannot be a genius at a split moment, say things the way you are supposed to say them, just because you think you have them off in your head. You understand what I'm trying to say?
Yes, we do.
You fail yourself by thinking that you remember things. We don't say read it verbatim, but have it where you throw your eye at it, because now you know it. When you see that I, you know it's informed. When you see that D, you know it's developed. You understand? The rigor is very important. Before you write yourself. Basically, you are signing yourself off that I'm now a star now. I'm not going to read this thing. I know them up by heart. And listeners are hearing you. Brother Sydney. Brother Sydney. You remember a joke you and I we shared, that it's very easy to say viewers when you mean to say listeners, because you are not reading it. Are you there? Brother
Can you
Sydney?
say that again, Sam?
I was saying to Sydney that I made a joke with him the other time and say, it's very easy to say viewers when you mean to say listeners.
Oh, okay, got you.
Because your subconscious mind sometimes is overpowering you. I'm just giving this example that I think what I'm emphasizing here is that with self-introduction, it's very easy to say, I know myself, I will introduce myself. But I think it's helpful to think around how you are going to introduce yourself, which aspect of yourself you are going to put through, and put it scripted there next to you so that you don't in the middle of the introduction, you think of something and you throw it in.
That's a good tip.
Yeah. Maynard? Is Maynard there? Yes.
Yes, sir.
Let's hear you.
I'm here. You know, like for the first day, you usually prepare the whole Bible with you, sitting with you on the table. But when time goes by, you will realize that you end up shortening it day by day. The last day, then you just end up just having the key points on the paper, rather than having the whole Bible with you on the paper to read. So I think we do develop with time. So we end up getting those mistakes. I know myself as well. If I can try to say the slogan, I end up realizing for sure I might have read it verse or in reverse way or one way or another. So I think it's very important maybe to have it written and read it all the time rather than just to say it from the heart. You see, so I think that's a mistake that I also picked up from myself. I know the slogan, but when I have to say it just by fluently talking, I find myself maybe taking one word, mixing it with another. And I realized after the show, oh no, I've messed up with that point where, and you only realize when you listen on the podcast, well, no.
Yeah.
It's not how I was supposed to say this thing. So I think the introduction part of it as well, it's actually a key. I mean, sometimes when you get used to the show, you might even end up forgetting to introduce yourself, for sure.
Yeah. Very important.
It was great because I was always having you on the right-hand side. So you always guided me throughout the show. So it actually, I've already learned from all those things. Like when you get me through the show, at least I can say, okay, fine, this is how we should introduce ourselves going forward. So I think the introduction part of it is also a key.
Yes. We're saying that it's very important because listeners want to know you. So introduce yourself to them and then take your time introducing yourself to them. I know we don't like to talk about ourselves, but this is now not about you. Can we underline this? When you introduce yourself, it's not about you, it's about the listeners. So take your time, make sure that you don't cut your weights. You fully say who you are, what are your credentials. Nobody's going to say you are boasting. You are the host. People want to know who was the host, who is he, what has he studied, where does he work, so that they can remember who was that person who was hosting the show. So therefore, there is a reason that for every show that you plan your personal introduction appropriate for that particular type of a show. If you are going to host a show with an entrepreneur, it's very important to bring entrepreneur side of you that qualifies you to be the host of an entrepreneur on the show. You may not tell them about your football and other things. But for this type of a show, people want to know why you hosting an entrepreneur on your show. What credentials make you to be the host? Or how much preparation you have made to ready yourself to be able to host an entrepreneur. That's a very important point. The next thing is, don't feel restricted at all. If you have planned for it, it's right. I always say that, you know that type of feeling where you plan something and then afterwards you feel scared, you say, no, I'm not going to do it. Then you change 2 seconds before you start the show, you have lost the whole show. Don't be scared by your own plans. They are right if you have put them together. So it's very important that you share your credentials that are appropriate for your show, because remember, this is an ecosystem. We want people to know what to come back to you for because of how you introduce yourself. So don't short sell yourself. That's why shows in various radio stations and TVs, they are named after people. Richard Quest means business. It's about him. It's him. Everybody wants to know who I am, you know. So make sure that you refer listeners to your professional social media accounts, people. I've said this several times. I'm still to hear most of you say, I know you are posting a lot, but this is the moment where you say, you want to know more about me. My name is so-and-so on social media, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on 123. People go there. That is where you reconnect with your listeners. Post your show. That's where you grow your ecosystem, and that's where you connect with them, right? Are we together? Those of you who are on who's posting the shows on social media?
I am.
Yeah, beautiful. And I know I'm already able to tell when I'm in the show, I'm producing with Michael. I can tell when your show was marketed well or not. Because we have got a certain average number of listeners. When you see a show running at 2 listeners, you know it was not marketed. Because people who follow you on social media will follow you to where you go, even on radio. So that connection is very important because the internet radio is part of a social media. It's part of the digital platforms like podcasts. So if they follow you on your podcast or they follow you on Instagram or whatever, they will follow you on radio. It's the same category. And then therefore that's why we do you those banners, posters, so that you can actually make them familiar. That when they see you with that poster, they know you're probably announcing a new show. Can we move on this one of self-introduction? I hope we're going to Sydney, you wanted to say something? Okay. I thought he wanted to say something. Introduction of guests. What is better for you? The guests introducing themselves or you introducing them? Secha? What works better for you?
What normally goes better for me is if I do a brief intro.
Yes.
Then research a little bit about themselves, about them, then give them that brief intro, and make them look good. In that, then allow them to then step in and start from personal, then professional.
Yeah. So I'm also able to tell when there has been little interaction between you, the host, and the guest, and when there's been thorough interaction. I tell it immediately within a few minutes. So these are the things that when you are recruiting people to your show, you can't take it for granted that people will introduce themselves in the show. It's very important to discuss your show, the approach, the segments, even as far as how they prefer that they are introduced. Some will say, you say a few words about me, have an agreement how you are going to introduce so that there are no surprises. That the introduction is also aligned with your show as well. So plan your show as a complete unit and then split it into those components. First, you want to have a great show that from the moment go, the listenership go up. And this is the beauty of internet that we see. Once you say on, you see the number going up. And then, after the introduction, believe you me, it goes down or it stays. That is a feedback to us. It tells us that the listeners are connected. Now, you lose your listeners at introduction phase. And that's why I was saying to Tendani that maybe you don't see the introduction as part of your. This is actually the point at which you either gain or lose listeners. That there at the introduction. Now, if you have never spoken with your guest about their introduction, you are not going to get them. But if you've spoken about it, you say, I want you to bring this angle about yourself. I want you to tell them why you think you were the right one for this show, and this is how I will tell them why I brought you in, and this is what is special about you, and this is what they can expect from you throughout the show, and this is what we hope to achieve when we come to the conclusion. So it can't be looked at independent from each other. Now, if you haven't think through it like that, you will always have your shows not having that type of it. And the funny thing is that now the listenership on the shows also reflect on the podcast. Because the podcast, remember, normally you have people who have listened to you, will go and share it with other people. Now, if you had a lower listenership at the show itself, you will automatically have a lower download at the podcast level because you don't have ambassadors out there telling people about it. Unless you are going to go on a drive to repost the podcast yourself, which is another extra work, which we always encourage anyway, because there might just be people who didn't know about the show. So it is not you alone planning the introduction, it's you and your guest planning the introduction and agreeing on how you're going to capture the attention of the listeners. And that's why I asked her, what works better? That means there are two options. Let the listener introduce themselves, but you must have agreed on what is he going to focus on that introduction. If you introduce them, what is it going to focus on them? And how are you going to blend with each other? In preparation for the powerful conversation. Let's talk about the introduction of the co-host. This is a concern for me. I've observed a number of times, and that's why I even said that, yes, you are the owner of the show, you are the host of the show. You have co-hosts coming to your show. The listener need not know who the owner of the show is. But in many cases, they can tell. Why? Because that interaction is not clear. You don't know who's supposed to handle what part of the show. You talk on top of each other. It shows that you didn't really... We don't say choreograph your show, but we say think about the type of... In fact, I don't call them questions that you're going to ask. I call them themes you want the guest to address, and who of us is going to bring which theme. And if we agreed that way, and there are 3 or 4 or 5 themes, if you are done as my co-host with your theme, I will know, because we have spoken about it. You won't have to say, come in, I'm done. No. I will know that you've exhausted your theme, and listening to the guest, I will know when the guest has actually exhausted the theme, because we have also connected with the theme, with the guest, and say, this is what we want to achieve with this segment of our show. Remember, our radio is an educational radio. It's not just talking for the sake of talking. We want people to learn. We want people to say, wow, this was really powerful. But the learning is also, we want people to know how we collaborate as hosts, production team, and guests. That is what creates the quality, not just the content alone. So to say, I know the topic, I'm ready, I'll handle it, and you don't plan and think around the makeup of your show, will let you down to a point where it dilutes even the powerful content that you actually possess, that is residing inside you as your competency. Have you ever felt a situation where they brought you in as a speaker because they know you are a master of this topic, but you fail to plan and then you don't live up to expectations, and then you feel like afterwards you want to dig a hole and run away? Where you have disappointed yourself, not because of the content, just because you underestimated the importance of understanding the audience, the importance of planning, rehearsing, and being up to it. Right?
Yep, that happens.
And it's painful when it happens. More so when it becomes a podcast, because it's there for life. Feel free to come in, guys, ladies and gentlemen, if you feel like. But these are really powerful tips, and that's why contact 1 is self-introduction. Contact 2 is introduction of the co-host. Introduce them, be respectful and acknowledge your co-host as your equal, and make sure that you have shared the job and you don't talk on top of each other, and the listeners need not know. Yes, you will say, these are my co-hosts. You are a host, you are each other's co-hosts, but you are owning the show together. It's your 2 voices that make that show, not only 1 voice. So now the introduction of the guest, I would like us to invest a little bit more on it, because if the introduction has been very hot, in many cases, even if the content is low, people will just actually be glued to it, because now many a time people want to network with that person post the show. And that's what people will come to your show for. You are giving them a platform to tell their story, to expose them to the ecosystem, to affirm them. Not everybody gets invited to radio stations. And by the way, here's the thing, Tendane, just I wanted to say later on. Do you know that people don't really, even if you tell them that you are learning, they don't really see you as learning. You are a host of a show. I've never been to a show before. You can't be telling me that you are learning. They see a celebrity, they see a star.
That's very correct. Even if I try to explain to them, they will say, we don't understand. We are listening to your show. What do you mean you are learning?
Exactly. So that means you must not really be too much obsessed with telling people that you are learning. You are a star. It's like in coaching. You go for the first coaching class. Tomorrow you start coaching because the only way we're going to make you a coach is by making you coach. Welcome, Ndate Munakhotle. Right? So it's very important to keep that. A guest, the mere fact that we invited the guest, he or she is already regarded by listeners as an expert on that topic. That's why it's important to advise the guests as well to always prepare, even if maybe they are not comfortable with it. Because if they prepare, people already elevated them to a level of being subject matter expert. So they should not judge themselves and say, I'm just coming to try. No. You are occupying an airwaves. You are a star already. Some of you are going to be shocked one day. People will say, I need an autogram from you because I really love your show. Meanwhile, you are just only doing show number 3. Now, we've spoken about yeah, sorry, carry on.
So now I just have one comment on this. Obviously, you produce these shows and we left. I think there's something lacking, that can improve us, right? So we go onto this show, then we come back and we do our own self-assessment.
Yes.
So can't you give us that feedback even after the show and say, okay, 1, 2, 3 worked very well, 1, 2, 3 didn't work? Because if I don't know what didn't work, I'm bound to make the same mistake over and over again. Absolutely.
No, you are spot on. No, we made the assumption that you will ask for it, but you are right. Michael is making note of that. I make note of that as well, because we know that you are not there where we know your potential will take you to, and we know you are going to go there, and we have seen that you are improving, and it's beautiful. Maybe we are over celebrating your improvements. Maybe we should also try and focus on giving you areas of improvement.
Yeah, that would really help because you listen to both. It's different guests, it's different content, but from a communication point of view, you do see that improvement. I do see that improvement for myself, but I feel like there's other areas that becomes low-hanging fruit that we can benefit a lot from those mistakes. And I'm not sure what the feel is from everybody else. Obviously, we should take this because the main purpose of these modules is also to reflect and learn. If you sit here and say, no, you were bad in 1, 2, 3, I'm not saying, I'm happy for you to share that feedback with the team so that they can learn from me, but I'm not sure what the feel is from other people on the platform.
Absolutely. Let's hear the other colleagues.
Yeah, maybe if I may also just comment on that, is that every time with our co-host we really give, Brother Sabelo is here, we give feedback in terms of what went right and what went wrong. On the introduction, there has been emphasis that we need to go according to the script, which is the point that Brother Sam has made, that I've asked for the profiles so that I introduce them the way they would want to be introduced, but also related to what the show is about and what would interest people to know that they are bringing something that they can benefit from based on the background. And I must say that on my side, I have not really done justice in introducing myself. And I really take the point that I need to write, my own profile, even if I know it, just to be consistent in those points for the benefit of the viewers. So I really like to do that. But also we get more feedback from Brother Sam and also Michael in terms of which areas we need to improve, and they've been very, very helpful. So yeah, that's all I can say for now. But also with our co-host, we've been very honest with ourselves. Sometimes the feedback may not be very nice, but we've said that because of it is for the benefit of the listeners. So we really need to give each other feedback, that will move us forward.
Absolutely. Thanks, Sydney. You are fortunate in the sense that you have a weekly show, so the growing is quite steep, which is great. Some colleagues have one show per month, so it's a long wait. Any other comment? Let me hear those who have not even hosted a single show. What is happening? What is going inside? What's going on inside you?
Ntate Joseph has been raising his
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Ntate Mnachotl. Joseph. Joseph? Okay. I'm not sure. All right. We'll keep on checking him. Yes. Mulikwe, you and Judith haven't hosted a show, but I know you are cooking it in the background.
Yes, I hope you can hear me well.
Yes.
Judith can add. But for me, from time to time I wanted to come in, but I liked what you said, that sometimes silence is it's a powerful issue. And I realized that from most of the discussions that we have even at work, people just come in just to talk, basically.
Yes.
And that happens also in the online meetings, where we spend a lot of time just listening to somebody repeating the same things that are not adding value. So I think those points that were mentioned earlier on about attention and I wanted to talk about the place, but I will leave it to the end. I will talk about it maybe when we close. But in terms of introduction and all those things, I think for me, it's not for me. Every time I have to host something or chair something, it's important how I introduce it and how I close it. In between, I have no much control over the discussion. I can plan it, but it can go many other ways. I will always try to direct it. But what I have control over is the introduction and the conclusion.
Absolutely.
That is just purely me. And that is what people sometimes remember. People remember what was said last. What was at the last, something they took out of the last conversation. And with the introduction, their attention is mainly on what is said at the beginning. So if you don't catch people right at the beginning, what you're saying, not prepared enough to catch people, they lose it. Then the attention goes off, then the numbers go down. And I see it in meetings. People, if you don't really get your stuff right at the beginning, introduction, what you're saying, how you're introducing whatever you're introducing, you're losing people. That's in short. I know that our show is coming. We'll share that, and I think maybe Judith can add. But we're learning a lot from mistakes that our colleagues have already made. So by the time we get there, I think we will be sharpened. And of course, feedback is important. You will never know whether you're doing something right until you do it, and then you actually get the feedback. So we're looking forward to that as well. Thanks, sir.
Wonderful. Great stuff. Great stuff. Now, this is the best way of learning, and good news to those who...
Hello?
Thank you very much. This is the best way of learning, and we're really grateful for those of who have jumped into it and have hosted so many shows, because now is right, Mudiko is right. We are learning from you, and I think we don't feel bad about it. It's very, very helpful indeed. And I'm not sure whether you can hear us. Otherwise, we'll just keep on trying you. Judith, any point? I mean, this is your second session you are attending. And I'm glad that you and Murikwe are cooking it in the background.
Thank you, Mr. Duma. Yeah, it's great. I mean, our preparations are going well, and like Mudiko said, we're learning from all the other mistakes that our colleagues have made. So it's kind of like helping us in preparing for our show, because we kind of like look at the points of where to focus, what to actually focus on, and what's really important and stuff like that. So it's actually going great. Even the modules that we are attending, they're also helpful in a way, because it's like we're putting all the information we're getting here and into our planning, and then we'll see how the plan went or goes by the time we actually host the actual show. So yeah, it's interesting.
Have you
We're also learning from the good things.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're also learning from the good things. So let's not
No, I must say there are people here that are amazing me. I mean, I don't have to mention names, but I give them feedback individually. I can tell you, we are producing great stars here. You may not realize it. Internet radio station is very difficult. It's not like a traditional radio station, you know. And by the way, your studio is also virtual. It's not like you see me. We don't see each other, but we are together. Don't underestimate that. There's really powerful stuff that you guys are producing. Sydney, you have been practicing, and I think Tendani as well, you have been practicing this recommendation very well, that separate introduction with the main body. And I love it. You know, you do the introductions, you share the topic, you even share the scriptures, and then you, at past, after that 30 minutes, you take 5 minutes break. I often find that in that first 5 minutes after introductions, now you are relieved that the introduction is out of the way, and then you start talking about how do we take it from here, brothers. I mean, that's beautiful. Brother Savelo, I think you can come in there. We didn't do it earlier days. Now we are doing it almost like standard now. We coach each other during the breaks. Those who don't know, the co-host, when we do a break, when we say it's 5 minutes break, we don't hang off. We switch off, we put music on, but we are talking still, and we coach each other. How do we take it to the next level? Brother?
Well, thank you so much, Brother Sam. And firstly, I want to thank you for arranging this opportunity for us to learn. It's the first time for me to come in on this lecture and this particular module. And there's a lot of golden nuggets that I have gained today. And I must say that thank you very much. We are going to sharpen our structure of the presentation of the show, taking into account all the good points that you have raised today. Just to say that I think we have been able to improve on from each show to the next, because we can learn from what we have been doing, especially the introduction. You know, there was a time when we were somehow mixing the introduction without the break, the topic and the introduction of the co-host, and we had spent a lot of time trying to deal with introduction before we have a break. Before we could even have a break. But we have now been able to modify that. You've seen the last show that we did. If you compare it with the previous show, you will see that we have modified, and it was deliberate, that we needed just to deal with the introduction and get out of, the check-in out of the way, and then after the break, then we get into the top. It has worked very, very well.
Yeah.
We still need to improve on that, but it has worked very well for us last show.
Absolutely. And by the way, introduction, as you've said, we talk about comprehensive introduction, introducing the guests, introducing the co-host, introducing the objectives of the show, introducing the topic, and then say, we will be back in 5 minutes. Now you're done with that, you can tick it off. The client now, as Muliko said, I now know what to expect. They even know which scriptures you are going to be reading, something like that. Although you keep on throwing scripts, but the main scriptures can be shared with people. And during that 5 minutes, you can imagine somebody who didn't have a Bible, they can now go and consult a Bible, and now they are ready to be part of you.
Amen.
Great stuff. Great stuff. Now, that's why we are now being served, Brother Sidney. Sundays are beautiful. And now, let's come to the next one. We dealt with these two, introduction of the guest and introduction of the station. That is something that you have to be to the spot on. And then introduction of yourself and introduction of the co-host, that also you can plan among yourself. But these two are very important. The introduction of the radio, guys, there's one flyer page that I've sent to you. It's very helpful to always have it. Even myself, sometimes I forget to use it and then I regret afterwards. Because that is succinct, it is clear, and it is important because that is what you want people to get used to as the way you're presenting the radio station. The idea, you are all doing very well on it, except that you are reading it randomly. It mustn't be read randomly. And Brother Sidney, I meant to share this with you, that you do it very well at the beginning, very well in breaks, very well at the end. But when you do it in between, I've had you increasing the speed from 60 kilometers to 120 kilometers per hour. And then I said, but why does he do this? Because, when you are flowing, you're reminding people that we are addressing our objective. Take your time. Don't say, and I don't know how you say it. You have got this style, you fly through it, and I wish you could repeat it for us, because it makes me laugh. You have done it so well, somebody might be saying, I want to capture this thing again. Now, next time you fly, you will say, we inform, entertain, develop, educate, empower, support, associate, and network. I said, that would have been very beautiful, because it's like a briefer. We inform and entertain. We develop and educate. We empower and support. We associate and network. Now, people now know the idea. That is the idea. That is the reason for our existence. This is what we stand for. The mind, the journey, the destiny. We apply our mind to the journey that takes us to our destiny. Those are the things that will make people start identifying with your show and identifying with the station. The station is your home, is your environment, it's your stage, You can't perform a movie on a stage that is not beautiful. Part of saying those slogans, you are beautifying your show, that this show is anchored on this purposeful vehicle called commercialradio.com. Patrick does it very well. I've really learned from him. It's the quickest way of saying we are commercialradio.com. This is our website. You understand?
Awesome,
yeah. Remember, I also said, and I repeat this for those who are joining for the first time, that your show is your enterprise. You can't forget that. Your show is not for Sam. It's not for Commercial. It's your show. You are hosted on Commercial Radio, but it's your show, it's your identity. That's why even the selling of it, That's why even the positioning of it is about you. You get to a point where people start saying, we are going to Sydney Harteb's show. That's how it's ultimately going to become, right? So when you are introducing the radio station, you are introducing the platform on which you are running your enterprise, which is your show. And when you say, please, after this, visit Commercial Podcast and website, but me personally, connect with me on my Facebook, then we know that we have now multiplied you. This is another point. You have got 5,000 people following you on your Facebook. They must have a reason to keep on following you. It's not about you when you post something on Facebook. Am I right, Sydney? It's not about you.
Yes.
We make a mistake. We think we are posting about you. No, it's about people who follow you. That's why they keep on following you, because every day they're looking forward to hear what Sydney is now going to post today. If you don't post, they get hungry. They may not tell you, but they get hungry. Yeah. So that is that. Then the last point, and before we maybe take a quick short break, and then we're going to wrap up in the last hour. Mudigwe spoke about something very fundamental, and I also addressed it with Tendani, that don't forget, your show is one unit, is made up of introduction, is made up of the body, is made up of checking out, which is closure. They must be equally the same in terms of importance, emphasis. Checking in, we've spoken about it. I said checking in is actually introduction. Is the same as the introduction. But there is a philosophy of introduction called checking in. And if you listen to Cicely Ndiwe yesterday, she addressed it. She said that why it's important for your shows and for your meetings that you allow people to check in. Imagine you have got this young mother. She used that. She said you have got a young mother who's part of your team, who's a single mother, and she delivers the children at the kindergarten herself, and then she rushes to work, and sometimes she comes stressed because it's been hectic, and then she gets into the show, and then you give them, each one of them 1 minute to check in. By checking in, she lets you know that she's been battling to take the child to the wherever she takes her to. But today the driver didn't come, she had to do it herself. So now you give people the opportunity to share with you what is going on at the moment, what pressures they are dealing with. And once you do that, you sort of like give them, you acknowledge and you appreciate what they are going through, and you sort of like give them the support, emotional support they may need. And that way you don't lose people. Then they feel wanted, they feel appreciated, then the meeting becomes successful. And therefore, we can't check in for the sake of just ticking the box. The checking in for us to connect with others, to check if we are all at the same level, that nobody of us is here but emotionally somewhere because of the difficulties at home. You are now becoming a caring boss. You are becoming a caring show. You're becoming a caring organization. Your show is like that. You are checking in. You say, there might be some of you out there that are listening, but your day wasn't great. We are with you. Remember what Romeo said the other time, the last session, that you are not talking to 100 listeners, you are talking to one listener. That one listener that tuned into your radio, that is the listener you are talking to. I actually like Pastor Mpentulo. I always listen attentively. He doesn't say listeners, he says listener. If you heard him saying that, Brother Sidney, he used singular.
Yes. Actually, we spoke about it, and it was very surprising. It was after Brother Romeo spoke about it.
Yes.
He actually said the same thing, to say we are just speaking to a listener, not to
listeners. Yeah, that one person that tuned in, he doesn't see other people that are listening. You are talking to that one person. When you say, you might have had a difficult day, but thank you for tuning in. We appreciate that. We are with you. Whatever it was in the day is gone past. Now we are here. Let's enjoy the moment. That is the purpose of checking in. Yeah, the checking out, which Mudigwe mentioned, is also very important. You have to finish the chapter. Imagine you're building a house and then you took all the months to build, and then you say, no, I'm gonna do an express roofing. So the roof is not important as the wall. And then after you roof that house, it leaks when it rains. What have you just done? Is it a good house? Good quality house? No. And that's why if you come to Lekgotla again, if you look into the manual, you'll see we have those 5 items you check out. When you listen to those 5 items, they have a particular outcome they are addressing. Number 1, we say, share with us what was confirmed by the session. In this case, obviously in a show, you don't do it that way because that's become boring. I've done it with Sister Lindwell all at once because she knows it and she addressed it all at once. But earlier on, you can just orientate yourself. We want to tell us what was it that you were aware of that was confirmed by the session today. At what point did you experience the aha moment? An aha moment is a point at which a penny drops. Things were not clear, but because of the show, they became clear. We call it an aha moment. It's a reflection of the whole 2-hour show, actually. If you don't do it, you actually go on and finish. And actually, by the way, Secha, that is the point at which actually even the listener, the guest, can actually give you feedback as well. And then you'll also say that, what is the take home for you? Something valuable from the show that you want to keep for yourself and you take home with. And I always use the analogy of if you were at a restaurant and you were eating and there's leftovers, if the food was very nice, you want to take it over because you want to enjoy it tomorrow. Or you want to share with somebody at home. That is to say that, this was a great show. I still want a bit of it to take with home. We also then said there is also some new insights. What new insights have you as a guest, you might have come to share something with us, but by talking to you, what have we enlightened you with? Or what opportunity have we given you to magnify your knowledge of this topic? And then you hear like Cicely to say, wow, as I was actually going through this show, it was like I was walking back my journey. It was a great moment of reflection. So you have just reinstated the person. You have just reaffirmed the person. Yet she was a guest to educate people, but herself had actually regained meaning of her existence. And then she said, Lord, I now have to write that book. So the guests don't only come to feed us, they also come to learn from us. And then the last one, which I like most, is we are busy transforming each other through this platform. And I'll say, what will you do different from now onward as a result of what we have discussed today at this show? And remember, as you are doing that, your listeners are also listening. They are also reflecting now to say, this is what I'm going to do different as a result of listening to the show. And you have to allow time for that, because if you are going to check out with 2-3 minutes, you're not going to do justice to it. It's yourself, your co-host, and the guest. So each one of you, because you need 5 minutes. And I still need 5 minutes to make sure that the last part of your podcast is going to have music. So you must start checking out when you are left with 20 minutes. And you stick to it, because if you don't stick to it, we are going to have all your shows ending up when you are actually on top of it, and then it's going to cut. But anyway, that is less important. What is important is that you have to close your show. You have to round up your show and check whether you have met the objectives that you set yourself at the opening of the show. On behalf of the listeners who are not there to talk for themselves. And that is the difficulty of our radio station. It is run like the way CNN runs. CNN is not a phoning-in television station. They invite people, but the guys who are co-hosting the CNN show, they always imagine them getting input from the listeners to say, ask him this, round it, say, close it this way. Or if you go on Bloomberg, you listen to that Rubenstein guy. When you listen to Rubenstein interview Bill Gates, you think it's like you have given him your questions that you wanted to ask Bill Gates about. Why? Because he knows that he is a tool that is being used by the listeners to extract the knowledge out of Bill Gates, because people will never meet Bill Gates and ask him the way he's asking. That's why they get invited to those shows for the benefit of the listeners. And that's exactly what you are doing with your radio. If you can remove yourself from yourself and make yourself as a messenger of your listeners, and you keep that at the back of your mind, I wouldn't be surprised one day you telling me that people are looking for you to come and chair their meetings, and that, because that's what we want ultimately the platform to do for you. I will stop there because we are now coming to a point where we are going to have to close the show. And maybe should we take 2 minutes, just leg stretch, and then 2 to 3 minutes, and then I would like us to wrap up. Okay? Great.